The first explosion came from the eastern sector, not a massive detonation, but a precise strike that took out the Exeran's main communications array. Simultaneously, across the city, dozens of similar attacks occurred. Power generators failed, sensor networks went dark, and command posts found themselves isolated. The Exeran response was predictable. They sent out patrols to crush the resistance. But the patrols found empty streets, abandoned positions, and then, when they least expected it, ambushes from directions they hadn't thought to guard. "This is impossible," growled Exeran Commander Krixtor, watching his tactical display dissolve into chaos. "These are civilians. They have no military training." His subordinate clicked his mandibles nervously. "Sir, the humans, they're teaching the others. They're not fighting like soldiers. They're fighting like..." "Like what?" Krixtor demanded. "Like predators, sir. Patient, cunning predators." In orbit, Captain Chen monitored the ground situation while coordinating the next phase of the operation. The Exeran fleet, though crippled, still posed a threat. But Chen had one more surprise in store. "Open a channel to all ships in the system," he ordered, including the Exeran vessels. When the channel opened, Chen spoke not just to the Exeran, but to every ship, every station, every being within range of the transmission. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of the United Earth Fleet. For too long, the Exeran Empire has expanded through fear and oppression. Today that ends. To all species suffering under Exeran rule, know this: you are not alone. Humanity stands with you." He paused, letting his words sink in. "And to the Exeran, your empire was built on the assumption that conquered peoples would remain conquered. That resistance, once crushed, would stay crushed. You were wrong." As Chen spoke, something unprecedented began happening throughout the Exeran fleet. On ship after ship, the subject species that served as lowercase crew members began to rebel. Inspired by the human example, they overwhelmed their Exeran masters, taking control of vessels from within. Back on Elysium 4, Elena led her mixed team in their assault on the main compound. But instead of a frontal attack, they used the sewers and maintenance tunnels, paths that Exeran had deemed beneath their notice. They emerged inside the compound's perimeter, turning its own defenses against its occupants. The Exeran guards, trained for conventional warfare, found themselves facing an enemy that refused to fight by their rules. Humans and aliens worked together seamlessly, each bringing their unique abilities to the battle. A Talaxian's natural camouflage combined with human tactical planning. A Brellian's strength paired with human-designed weapons. "Commander Torres," Chen's voice came through her earpiece, "we're detecting massive energy signatures from the Exeran Command Center. They may be preparing to self-destruct rather than surrender." Delena's jaw tightened. "Not if we can help it. All teams, converge on the command center. We're ending this now." The final battle wasn't a battle at all. It was a hunt. The Exeran, so used to being the hunters, found themselves pursued through their own stronghold by an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at once. When Elena finally breached the command center, she found Commander Krixtor alone, his guards having either fled or surrendered. The massive Exeran warrior towered over her, his chitinous armor gleaming in the emergency lighting. "You humans," he growled, "you've doomed the galaxy to chaos. Without the Empire's order, without your Empire's oppression," Elena interrupted, "the galaxy will finally be free to choose its own path." Krixtor raised his weapon, but before he could fire, a shot rang out. The weapon clattered from his grasp as Dr. Malik stepped from the shadows, a smoking pistol in his hand. "Sorry, Commander," Malik said calmly, "but we're writing a new chapter in galactic history, one without empires built on fear." As Exeran forces across Elysium 4 surrendered, similar scenes played out throughout the sector. The subject species rebellion spread like wildfire, with human ships providing support and coordination. Within days, entire systems were breaking free from Exeran control. A week later, Elena stood in the rebuilt council chambers of Elysium 4, now serving as the headquarters for the newly formed coalition of free worlds. Representatives from dozens of species filled the hall, all looking to humanity for guidance. Captain Chen stood beside her as she addressed the assembly. What happened here wasn't just a military victory, Elena said. It was proof that no empire, no matter how powerful, can stand against the united will of free peoples. In the depths of space, something stirred. The United Earth Fleet, dormant for so long that most species had forgotten its existence, began to wake. Shipyards that had been silent for decades roared to life. Weapons that had been kept in sealed vaults were brought online. And at the heart of it all, Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, studying the tactical data from Elysium 4. "Time to remind the galaxy," he murmured, "why you don't wake a sleeping giant." The Xeran had thought themselves masters of warfare, their empire built on the broken backs of conquered species. They had studied every major military power in the galaxy, adapted to every strategy, overcome every defense. But they had never faced humans in their element. They had never seen what humanity could do when pushed to the brink. They had never experienced the terrifying creativity of a species that had spent millennia perfecting the art of war against itself. As dawn approached on Elysium 4, the Xeran prepared for their final victory. But in the skies above, something was coming, something that would shatter their assumptions about warfare, about conquest, and about the limits of human determination. The enemy thought they'd won. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The human response. Captain Marcus Chen stood on the bridge of the Prometheus, his hands clasped behind his back as he studied the holographic display of Elysium 4. The blue-green world rotated slowly, marred by the red indicators showing Xeran positions. His crew worked with silent efficiency around him, their faces set with grim determination. "Status report," he commanded. "The fleet is assembled, sir," responded Commander Sofia Volkov, his second in command. 15 ships ready for jump. The Ares, Athena, and Valkyrie battle groups are in formation. Chen nodded. 15 ships against a Xeran occupation force of over 100 vessels. By conventional military wisdom, it was suicide. But conventional wisdom had never accounted for human ingenuity. Time to Elysium 4. 6 hours at maximum jump velocity, the navigation officer reported. "Make it 5, Chen ordered. "And send a message to all ships. Operation Trojan Dawn is go. Radio silence from this point forward." The bridge dimmed as the Prometheus prepared for jump. In the observation bay, Chen watched as space itself seemed to bend around them. During humanity's isolation, they hadn't been idle. They'd developed technologies the rest of the galaxy couldn't imagine, not just weapons, but new ways of thinking about warfare itself. 5 hours later, the human fleet emerged from jump space at the edge of the Elysium system. Immediately, Xeran sensors detected them. "Sir, we're being hailed," the communications officer announced. On screen, the image of a Xeran commander appeared, tall, chitinous, with multiple eyes that gleamed with cold intelligence. "Unidentified vessels, you have entered Xeran-controlled space. Power down your weapons and prepare to be processed, or you will be destroyed." Chen smiled coldly. "This is Captain Marcus Chen of the United Earth Fleet. We're here to discuss your withdrawal from Elysium 4. The Xeran commander's mandibles clicked in what might have been laughter. "Humans, we thought your species had learned its place. You are outnumbered 7 to 1. Surrender now, and your processing will be painless." "You're right about the numbers," Chen agreed, "but you're wrong about everything else." He cut the transmission and turned to his crew. "Execute Phase 1. What happened next defied everything the Xeran knew about space combat. The human ships didn't form battle lines or attempt to match the Xeran formation. Instead, they scattered, each vessel following seemingly random vectors. The Xeran, confused but confident, gave chase. Their tactical doctrine was simple: overwhelm with superior numbers, disable enemy vessels, board and process the crews. They'd used this strategy to conquer dozens of worlds. But the humans weren't playing by those rules. "Sir, the Hermes has reached position," Volkov reported. "Activate the mimetic field," Chen ordered. Suddenly, Xeran sensors showed not 15 human ships, but hundreds. The mimetic field generators created perfect sensor ghosts, indistinguishable from real vessels. The Xeran fleet, trying to respond to threats from all directions, began to fragment. Phase 2, Chen commanded. The real human ships, hidden among the false signals, began their attack. But they didn't use conventional weapons. Instead, they deployed swarms of microscopic drones that attached to Xeran vessels and infiltrated their systems. "Neural override in progress," the tactical officer reported. "We have partial control of their navigation systems." Chen watched as several Xeran ships began to drift off course, their crews fighting to regain control of their own vessels. Begin Phase 3. The fallen colony. The sirens had stopped wailing hours ago. Now there was only silence, the kind that pressed against your eardrums and made you wish for any sound, even the screech of Xeran plasma cannons. Commander Elena Torres crouched in the ruins of what had once been the administrative center of Elysium 4, her uniform torn and stained with blood that wasn't all her own. Around her, the survivors huddled in the darkness. Humans, Talaxians, Brillians, and half a dozen other species, all refugees from worlds that Xeran Empire had already consumed. Elysium 4 was supposed to be different, a neutral colony, protected by treaties that had apparently meant nothing to the Xeran's insatiable appetite for conquest. "Status report," Elena whispered to Lieutenant Karasing, who was manning their last functional sensor array. "They're setting up containment fields around the major population centers," Kara replied, her voice barely audible. "Standard procedure for them. They'll start processing the population at dawn." Processing. Such a clinical word for what the Xeran did to conquered peoples. Elena had seen the aftermath on other worlds. Entire populations reduced to mindless drones, their free will stripped away by neural implants, turned into perfect servants for the Empire. A Talaxian child whimpered nearby, quickly hushed by its mother. Elena felt the weight of responsibility pressing down on her shoulders. These people had come to Elysium 4 seeking safety, and she had failed to protect them. "Commander," a voice called softly. It was Dr. Malik Hassan, their xenoarchaeologist. "You need to see this." Elena followed him through the rubble to a chamber that had somehow survived the bombardment. In its center stood an ancient device, its crystalline structure pulsing with faint light. "What is it?" Elena asked. "Pre-collapse technology," Malik explained, his eyes gleaming with excitement despite their dire situation. "I've been studying it for months. It's a quantum communicator, capable of sending messages across vast distances instantaneously." "Does it work?" "I managed to activate it just now. It's locked onto a single destination." Malik paused, swallowing hard. "Earth." Elena felt her heart skip a beat. Earth. Humanity's homeworld had been isolated for decades, ever since the Great Withdrawal following the First Contact Wars. They'd retreated from galactic politics, focusing on internal development. No one knew what they'd become in their self-imposed exile. "The Xeran will detect any transmission," Kara warned, having followed them into the chamber. "They'll detect us eventually anyway," Elena replied. She looked at the faces of her team, seeing the same desperate hope she felt. Earth might be our only chance. The decision weighed on her like a physical burden. Contacting Earth could bring the Xeran's attention to humanity's homeworld. But if she didn't, everyone on Elysium 4 would face a fate worse than death. "Do it," she ordered. Malik's fingers flew over the ancient controls. The device hummed to life, its crystals glowing brighter. Elena stepped forward and began to speak. "This is Commander Elena Torres of the Elysium 4 colony. We are under attack by the Xeran Empire. Our defenses have fallen. We have civilians, humans, and others who will be processed at dawn. This is a call for help to any human vessel receiving this transmission. We need immediate assistance." She paused, then added words she never thought she'd say. "Earth, if you can hear us, we need you." The message sent, they waited in tense silence. Minutes passed like hours. Then, impossibly, the device chimed with an incoming transmission. The voice, clear and strong, filled the chamber. "Elysium 4. This is Captain Marcus Chen of the United Earth Fleet vessel Prometheus. Message received. Hold your position. We're coming." Elena felt tears spring to her eyes. After decades of silence, Earth had answered. "Captain Chen," she replied, her voice thick with emotion. "The Exaran have orbital superiority and ground forces throughout the colony. We're severely outmatched." There was a pause, then Chen's voice returned, carrying a tone that sent chills down her spine, not of fear, but of fierce determination. "Commander Torres, you said that Exaran planned to process your people at dawn." "Yes, sir." "Then they've made their first mistake. They've given us a deadline." Another pause. "And their second mistake was thinking humanity had forgotten how to fight." Prometheus actual out. As the transmission ended, Elena noticed something had changed in the chamber. The survivors who had gathered to listen stood straighter, their eyes brighter. Hope, that most human of qualities, had returned. Outside, the Terran continued their preparations, confident in their victory. They had no idea what was coming. This was the part Chen had been dreading. Not because it wouldn't work, but because of what it represented. Humanity had learned hard lessons during its years of isolation, studying its own history of warfare. They'd realized that the most effective weapon wasn't always the one that destroyed the body, but the one that broke the spirit. The human ships began broadcasting on all frequencies, not weapons fire, not threats, but stories, accounts of Terran defeats, carefully crafted psychological warfare designed to exploit every weakness in their collective psyche. Images of free worlds, of species throwing off Xeran control, and most devastatingly, fabricated recordings of Xeran commanders questioning their empire's mission. "Their fleet cohesion is breaking down," Volkov reported, a hint of awe in her voice. "They're actually turning on each other." Some Xeran ships fired on their own allies, convinced they were traitors. Others simply shut down, their crews paralyzed by doubt. The mighty Xeran fleet, which had conquered worlds through fear and overwhelming force, was destroying itself from within. "Sir," the communications officer called out, "we're receiving a transmission from the surface. It's Commander Torres." Elena's face appeared on the screen, dirt-streaked but alive. "Captain Chen, the Exaran ground forces are in chaos. They're receiving conflicting orders, and some are abandoning their posts. What did you do?" "We reminded them that they're not invincible," Chen replied. "How are your people?" "Ready to fight," Elena said fiercely. "Just give us the word." Chen nodded. "Phase 4 begins now. We're coming down." The human fleet moved toward Elysium 4, but not in a traditional assault formation. Each ship released thousands of drop pods, not filled with soldiers, but with something far more dangerous: fabrication units, medical supplies, weapons that civilians could use, and most importantly, communication devices. As the pods rained down on Elysium 4, they created an instant network of resistance cells. Every survivor became a potential fighter, every hiding place a command center. The Exaran, trained to fight conventional armies, found themselves facing an entire population that had suddenly gained the means to resist. "Sir, the Exaran flagship is trying to retreat," Volkov reported. Chen's expression hardened. "No, they don't get to run. Target their jump drives." The Prometheus fired a single shot, a concentrated beam of exotic particles that passed through the Exaran shields like they weren't there. The flagship's jump drives exploded in a cascade of blue fire. "Broadcast this message to all Xeran forces," Chen ordered. "Surrender unconditionally, or face the consequences. You have 1 hour to comply." He turned to his bridge crew. "In the meantime, continue the landings. I want every survivor on that planet armed and connected to our tactical network within the hour. As the human fleet secured orbital control, Chen allowed himself a moment of reflection. The galaxy had forgotten what humans were capable of, their adaptability, their creativity, their sheer stubborn refusal to accept defeat. The Exeran had fought conquest was about superior numbers and firepower. They were about to learn that humans had a different definition of warfare entirely. On the surface of Elysium 4, Elena Torres watched as the sky lit up with human drop pods. Each one that landed brought new hope, new possibilities. The Exeran guards who had seemed so invincible hours ago now looked uncertain, their compound eyes darting nervously at the sky. She activated one of the newly arrived communication devices. All resistance cells. This is Commander Torres. The humans have arrived. It's time to show the Exeran what happens when you corner the wrong species. The liberation of Elysium 4 was about to begin, not with a massive assault, but with thousands of small acts of defiance, coordinated into a symphony of resistance that would echo across the galaxy. The Exeran had thought victory was theirs. They had no idea how wrong they were. The turning point. Dawn broke over Elysium 4, but it wasn't the dawn that Exeran had planned for. Instead of orderly lines of colonists being herded into processing centers, the planet erupted in coordinated chaos. Every street corner, every building, every shadows held a surprise for the occupying forces. Elena Torres crouched on her rooftop overlooking the main Exeran compound, her newly acquired pulse rifle humming with barely contained energy. Around her, a mixed group of humans and aliens prepared for what would have been unthinkable just hours ago, a direct assault on their oppressors. Remember, she whispered into her comm unit, we're not trying to win a conventional battle. We're sending a message. She looked around the chamber, seeing hope in alien eyes that had known only fear for generations. That Saren thought they could process us, strip away what makes us unique, what makes us strong. They failed because they didn't understand that our greatest strength isn't in our weapons or our ships. It's in our ability to inspire others, to show them that resistance is always possible. Chen stepped forward. Earth's isolation is over. We return to the galactic community not as conquerors, but as liberators. The human fleet will help any world that seeks freedom from oppression. But we won't fight your battles for you. We'll teach you to fight for yourselves. In the months that followed, the Exeran Empire crumbled. Not through massive battles or superweapons, but through the simple, powerful idea that humans had brought back to the galaxy, that freedom was worth fighting for, and that no being should have to face oppression alone. The galaxy had learned a valuable lesson. When facing a crisis, when all hope seemed lost, sometimes the best strategy wasn't to call upon the strongest warrior or the most advanced technology. Sometimes you just needed to reach out to a human. Epilogue. Years later, the liberation of Elysium 4 was taught in schools across the galaxy as a turning point in history, not just for the fall of the Exeran Empire, but for what it revealed about humanity's role in the cosmic community. The humans hadn't returned as conquerors or saviors. They'd returned as teachers, showing the galaxy that the greatest weapon against tyranny wasn't superior firepower. It was the indomitable spirit of free beings standing together. And in the depths of space, aboard ships crewed by humans and aliens alike, a new saying became common. Never tell a human the odds. They'll just find a way to change them. The enemy had thought they'd won. They'd learned, too late, that against human determination and ingenuity, victory was never certain, and defeat was never final.